The history of Dragon Ball games. Every year it looks like it's going to end, but it never ends up being that way. The more the time goes by, the more ideas continue to emerge. Not necessarily innovative ideas, but they can provide something with which players can feel fresh. But here, this was a dream come true for the fans. People were a little anxious to see a real fighting game. It had been a long time without a solid Dragon Ball game with interesting fighting mechanics, and in 2018 that was just what we got. A video game from Arc System Works, the masters of fighting games. A title that would be a peak of quality. Join me to see the greatness of Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is a pretty special video. It's one of the most requested, and after a pretty long period of rankings and tops regarding the Budokai games in the last months, I think it's time to go back to the reviews of so many anime and fighting games that we have pending. So if we reach 200 likes, I promise to continue bringing videos of the games that you like so much. Without further preamble, let's begin. To be honest, the first time I saw this game, it didn't catch my attention at all, mainly because by that point I had a wrong concept of how Dragon Ball games should be. For me, they were only entertaining if they were arena fighters with a lot of characters or representing the story with good graphics. I know, you don't have to remind me how dumb I was at that moment. This is why I didn't play FighterZ until 2019, because of a friend who got involved playing it online. We played a few games, and far from disappointing me, I got a pleasant surprise. One of the main aspects that I wasn't too sure about was the 2D combat format. It looked flat to me, but when playing it, I understood the beauty of its style. And I'm surprised I didn't realize that before, because I was a huge fan of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on its day. So I don't understand why combining two things that I liked, which were Dragon Ball and a full fighting game format, I didn't like it. On this game, I have always seen two sides of the coin. The first, which is a way to play for any fan and casual player who becomes interested in fighters. You can find a very decent interface, roster of characters and gameplay to have a good time both in single player and with your friends, without the need to enter that depth in the combo system. And then there's the other pole, which are players who from the beginning want to work on learning and perfecting their movements. They want to be better every day. They want to compete. And that's something for which Dragon Ball FighterZ is perfect. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, let's go step by step. Before continuing, please be aware that right now we acknowledge that FighterZ is an awesome game, one of the best that has ever existed relating to the franchise, and that the doubts that I had at the beginning already disappeared. Sometimes you have to live a little out of the comfort zone to get to know new perspectives. In the Arc System Works studios, Junya Motomura and Tomoko Hiroki, director and producer of Dragon Ball FighterZ, stated that the first to suggest the idea of developing this game were Bandai Namco, and since by this point Arc Systems had already worked with Bandai for Extreme Butoden, they thought it would be the right option. In addition, the developers wanted to challenge themselves, overcoming themselves with a game that would show great deep fighting gameplay, which at the same time was accessible to players and showing the beauty of the Dragon Ball universe, just like Dragon Ball Xenoverse did with its two previous deliveries. In fact, it wasn't the first time that Motomura directed a Dragon Ball game. This man was also performing in the same position in Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors, a game also extremely well received on the Game Boy Advance. This way, the goal was not to create an anime game with Dragon Ball, but a fighting game that involved the Dragon Ball universe, and that was done with excellence. The first time you start Dragon Ball FighterZ, you are introduced to the main lobby, where all the game modes are condensed. The style reminds me a lot of BlazBlue. I don't know if you get what I'm talking about, but you know, Arc Systems, anime, I don't think it's a coincidence. The thing is that here you have a predetermined character to start walking around in the room. If you're interested in changing your character, it can be done through C capsules. These are special items that you can obtain in campaign, training, or championship missions, and they not only contain avatars to alternate with the one you already have, but also different titles, colors, and designs for your player card online. But we will get onto that later. Taking into account that not many people are interested in me touching this topic, I will be brief with my point of view of the story. It's a secret for no one that it's not that good, okay? It has many failures with its original story. It's expected that this mode is there as an experimentation to learn controls, get familiar with the game if you are new, and kill a few hours until you feel more confident to go online. In the story, you start a new crisis of the Sea Warriors when facing Android 21 and her creations, which are, exactly, you guessed it, evil clones of the heroes, an option that has become the all-reliable option for the story modes of this type of games. By the way, I love the design of Android 21. At first, when I saw her, I thought it was some evil female clone of Majin Buu. It looks great and plays even better, a design that was made exclusively for the game. It all starts because we are controlling an individual who, for some reason, woke up inside Goku's body, so we must use his body to defend ourselves from the different threats that will be presented to us. Also, to progress in the story, you must advance in different sections of this progression map, where you can do additional missions, find upgrade items, and unlock allies to use them in future combat. Because yes, you can switch between companions to not always use the same character in the story. They have a life and key bar that deteriorates, and that's why you must be smart when letting them rest. They have progression levels, and practically they multiply as time goes. There's not much more to highlight at the narrative level of this game. Everything is pretty conservative, making us link the encounters with the other warriors and the villains who reappear with some cliché explanations. But in conclusion, it's a game mode that meets with what has to be. Nothing special.
来ないのか？ならこっちから行くぞ。
The gameplay is the jewel of this game and what opaques any possible failure. We know that it's a style of 2D fighting game with great depth in each of the hits that the fighters execute. Each hit has timing and movement that contribute to the gameplay in a different way. The number of mobility routes that Dragon Ball FighterZ offers are worthy of a work team expert in fighting games. You have light attack, medium attack, heavy attack, low light attack, low medium attack, upward heavy attack, special attacks at different levels of pressure, and hit stunt, ki blast, aerial and reverse command, and ground recovery. You can delay your recovery on the ground. You have a Dragon Rush that works as a grab and which routes to more air combos, a reflect command to counter-attack. There are also special moves that spend meter, all unique to each fighter, chaining of several special techniques at the same time, change of leader in the middle of a combo, assistance of different types between A, B, and C. There are command grabs, also the possibility of forcing a leader switch on the rival and sparking that boosts attack skills and gradually recovers health. These are only the aspects already established in the game that I can mention, but there's a sea of more possibilities to discover, something that is only achieved by playing constantly. If you are a fan of Dragon Ball games but you have never played FighterZ, I invite you to learn how to play, and you'll realize that to adapt and feel comfortable with the buttons you press, it'll take you 10 or maybe 20 times longer than how much it would take you to learn to play a game like Budokai Tenkaichi. It's a game that can be played casually because they introduce many mechanics that allow the casual players to have fun, see great combos and do special attacks with little effort, and that's because Arc System knew that it should not only aim at the competitive scene. There's people who simply don't want to play that way, they just want to have a good time and play with their friends. Many games related to the competitive playstyle don't allow that much, but FighterZ was the perfect setting to do it. It's also the same way to invest hours, and if you decide to do it, the result will be very noted. The characteristic 3D graphic style of the Arc System games, which manages to perfectly emulate the 2D perspective, was also an incredible boost for what the Easter eggs of the dramatic finishes are, a special sequence that references iconic moments of the series, if certain conditions are met in the combat. For example, when Goku finishes Kid Buu, we have the mythical scene in which he pulverizes the villain with the Spirit Bomb. We have many more dramatic finishes combining many moments from both Super and Z, as well as some original interactions that the developers left us with a lot of love. While the number of characters is something that people constantly complain about in this game, it's because it was intended as a long-term experience, so that players could play their games for a certain period and launch different season passes, which include new fighters. At the beginning, the base game had 24 initial characters, which is not a very high number, but at least meets the requirement of diversity that we all look for in this type of games. Even if we take into account that the gameplay of this title was suitable for spending hours to discover what the combinations of each character are like. And now, in the end, it has 44 characters, after 3 fighter passes, adding not only some iconic characters from the original series that were missing, but also new additions that made a lot of chaos. Jiren, Kefla, Ultra Instinct Goku, Broly and Gogeta from the movie, in addition to some characters who return to the routes of GT like Baby and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Everything ends up condensing an excellent roster of characters, in my opinion, that has exactly what the game needs to offer in matter of depth. If I can be sure of one thing, is that this game did something special. It was able to reunite a community that had remained for a long time still in the field of fighting games. It had been many years since a game attracted so many people within the fighting game community, including people who are not fans of these games, but love to watch the show they create. The World Championships, fans tournaments, and even ranked battles. We must not forget that this is a very successful game. In 2020, it has been overcoming the best-selling game in the history of Dragon Ball, the first Xenoverse, right now being the most profitable entertainment product of the entire Dragon Ball game franchise. It's a game that brought a community together again, and that has an immense value. Opinions go from here to there, many hate the game, many love it, there's people defending Dragon Ball games that should only be arena fighters, others who applaud for having tried different paths. The endless discussion here that if one game is better than the other, the truth is that we all have different thoughts and we are governed by our own experiences, so it seems a little unnecessary to try to change other person's mind when you know it's not going to happen. Express yourself, say what you think, but everything from the respect and trying to leave your egos aside. We are all part of the same community at the end. If you've come this far, I want you to know that you are a legend. Thank you so much. Tell me in the comments your experience with Dragon Ball FighterZ, because I know you wanted us to touch the topic here on the channel. It was a long wait and we finally got here. Remember that the reviews of Dragon Ball games are still far from over. We still have Kakarot, Final Bout, the second part of Xenoverse 2 on the list. Don't sleep on the channel because this is just getting started. That was all for today and I'll be watching you in the next video. Take care and see ya.